I walked into Elegancia, the trendiest boutique in the city, clutching the strap of my worn-out shoulder bag. The door chimed politely, but the silence that followed wasn't welcoming. The place reeked of luxury and judgment, a place where appearances were everything. And mine didn't belong. I wore my favorite floral dress, a simple cotton thing I'd repaired myself more times than I could count. It had a tiny rip near the hem, now hidden with a neat, hand-stitched patch. The colors had faded over time, but to me it still held value. To others, it was just cheap. As I browsed quietly, running my fingers across a delicate silk blouse, a voice behind me rang out, too loud to be an accident. "Oh my God, is that actually what you're wearing?" I turned slowly. A young saleswoman stood a few feet away, arms crossed, lips curled in amusement. She had platinum blonde hair tied up in a sleek bun, sharp eyeliner, and a name tag that read Trina, Senior Fashion Consultant. Before I could respond, she continued with venom wrapped in sugar. "Sweetie, this is Elegancia. We don't sell thrift store fashion here. Maybe try the clearance bin across the street." I felt the weight of every eye in the boutique turn to me. A pair of women near the changing rooms giggled. Even the man at the counter gave a smirk. My cheeks burned, but I didn't say a word. I held my breath, smiled politely, and walked out. Dress swaying behind me, head held higher than it felt. They thought they had mocked a nobody. They had no idea I was coming back, not as a customer, but as their future owner. You see, people like Trina only see the surface, the shoes, the bag, the dress. What they never look at is the story sewn into the seams. 5 years ago, I had a different life, one filled with Sunday brunches, private school uniforms, and warm hugs from a mother who smelt like jasmine and homemade curry. My father owned a local textile mill, small but proud. We weren't rich, but we had dignity. We had roots, until the fire. It started in the dyeing unit. Faulty wiring. That's what the investigators said. But faulty or not, it took everything. The machines, the fabric, my father. He died trying to rescue the workers who stayed back to help. My mother, she was never the same. She went quiet like someone had unplugged her from the world. We moved to the city with whatever insurance money remained, barely enough to rent a one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where dreams came to die. I wanted to study fashion. I loved designing. Not the glittery kind, but the kind that felt like comfort, like memory. Clothes that reminded people who they were before the world told them to change. But college needed money. So I stitched clothes by day, worked part-time in a tiffin kitchen by night. Every rupee went into savings. Every fabric scrap I found, I turned into something new. For customers, for myself. That dress Trina mocked? It was stitched from the leftover cloth of my first custom order. A thank you dress to myself. Cheap to her. Symbolic to me. And yet the mockery hurt. Not because it was new, but because it felt like every insult I'd buried under my breath had surfaced again, laughing at my past, doubting my future. But pain is a curious thing. It either breaks you or forges you. That night, as I stitched another customer's blouse under dim yellow light, I made a decision. I would never be mocked like that again. Not for my dress. Not for my dreams, not for being me. Days passed, but the sting of Trina's words stayed with me like a stain that refused to wash out. I buried myself in work, sewing, sketching, designing. It wasn't just therapy anymore. It was a mission. One morning, while dropping off a stitched outfit to a regular client, I noticed an unfamiliar man in the living room, clean-shaven, salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes, and a half-drunk cup of green tea in his hand. "This is the girl?" he asked. I stood awkwardly, wondering if I'd made a mistake in the measurements. "She's the one who designed my anniversary dress." My client smiled. "From scratch, no formal training." The man walked over and examined the stitching like a jeweler inspects a diamond. After a long pause, he said, "You ever think of doing this on a bigger scale?" "Bigger how?" I asked. He smiled. "Commercially, storefront, online, maybe a little investment?" His name was Mr. Qureshi, a retired textile merchant turned silent investor. He funded small-scale designers who showed potential but lacked backing. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Me? Own a store? I wouldn't know where to begin, I admitted. He placed a card in my palm. "Come see me when you're ready. But know this, fashion doesn't live in fabric. It lives in story. And your work? It speaks." For 3 nights, I couldn't sleep. Was this fate? Was this the thread I'd been praying for? I pulled out my notebook, the one filled with sketches no one had seen. I flipped through ideas, minimalist wear with traditional soul, fabric from local weavers, clothing stitched with meaning, not just margins. I remembered the boutique, elegancia, the way they made me feel, the way they made others feel. What if I created a store for people like me? People who wanted to feel seen, not judged. I walked to Mr. Qureshi's office with shaking hands but fire in my heart. "I'm ready," I said. Mr. Qureshi didn't waste time. Within a week, I was sitting in a sunlit office with a team of young designers, marketers, and logistics managers, people who believed in my vision even before the first stitch was cut. He helped me establish a small brand called Sutra Soul, a name that combined thread and soul, 2 things I believed made a garment truly beautiful. We started small, an online store first with just 5 pieces, all handmade, all limited edition. My designs sold out in 48 hours. 2 weeks later, a local fashion blogger featured my story under the headline, "The Girl Who Stitched Her Way to Stardom." Orders exploded. Comments flooded in. Emails poured from women who said, "Your clothes feel like home." And then came the offer that changed everything. Mr. Qureshi walked into the office one morning with a folded newspaper. "Guess which boutique is going bankrupt?" I looked down. Elegancia, the very place where I'd been mocked, was now up for acquisition. "It's prime location," Mr. Qureshi said. "Terrible management. The owner wants out. Cheap." I didn't even hesitate. "I want it." He blinked, surprised. "You sure? That place?" "I know what that place is," I interrupted, "and I know what I'm going to turn it into." It took a month to finalize the paperwork, another month to renovate the interior, ripping down judgmental spotlights and cold white tiles, replacing them with warm lighting, rustic textures, and earth-tone displays. The grand reopening was announced on social media. Coming soon, Sutra Soul, where every stitch tells a story. Previously elegancia, new owner, new soul. People buzzed about it. Was it real? Was that her? And Trina? Oh, Trina hadn't heard yet, but she would, very soon. The store smelled of fresh cedar and patchouli. The wooden shelves gleamed, lined with handmade scarves, naturally dyed tops, and delicately woven dresses that held more than just threads. They held identity. It was launch day, and Sutra Soul was overflowing. Customers browsed slowly, touching fabrics like they were art. Photographers snapped candid moments. A soft instrumental track played in the background. I wore one of my newest designs, a pale lavender kurta with hand-embroidered cuffs, matched with loose white trousers and silver bangles. My hair was braided down the side, subtle makeup, a soft gloss on my lips. I was helping a customer with a blouse size when I heard the familiar chime of the door, and then silence. I turned. There she was, Trina. Still stylish, still dramatic. But this time her confidence flickered. She looked around the boutique, clearly confused. She ran her hand across a linen tunic and scoffed. "Where's Elegancia?" she asked loudly, glancing at the woman next to her. Another customer whispered, "It's called Sutra Soul now. A new designer bought it." Trina's brows pulled together. I stepped forward. "Can I help you?" I asked, gently. She turned toward me. Recognition hit her like a slap. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. "Wait, you're that girl from the clearance bin, right?" I smiled. Her lips parted, but no words came. "I bought this place last month," I added, voice calm. "Did some cleaning, a little redesign, took out the trash." A few customers glanced over. The moment was electric. I didn't know," she muttered, trying to find footing. "Of course not," I replied. "People like you rarely look past the surface." She laughed awkwardly, probably trying to brush it off. "Well, good for you. Looks quaint." I could see her trying to regain control, maybe hoping to offer some backhanded compliment and leave with dignity. But karma wasn't done. "Are you hiring?" she blurted suddenly. I paused. She looked around, eyes heavy with uncertainty. "I lost my job after Elegancia shut down. Fashion's a tough space right now. And well, you clearly did something right." For a long, heavy second, I said nothing. And then I simply smiled. I stood still, letting her words hang in the air like a storm cloud about to burst. She, who once laughed at the seams of my handmade dress, now stood before me, asking for a job in the store I built from broken dreams and leftover fabric. Poetic, isn't it? I motioned for her to sit at the consultation table near the display window, the same window Elegancia once used to judge people by their reflections. I offered her water. She hesitated, then sat clutching her designer handbag like it was the last piece of her pride. "You want to work here?" I asked softly. Trina gave a tight smile. "Look, I know we didn't exactly start off well, but I have experience in luxury retail, styling, merchandising, even managing accounts. I was good at my job. I still am." "And when a girl walked in with a handmade dress," I asked, "how did you treat her?" Her eyes dropped. "I was cruel," she admitted, voice small, "and stupid. But that was before I knew what it felt like to be on the other side." For the first time, I saw something real in her face. Not pity, not pride, just regret. Maybe life had taught her something since Elegancia shut down. Maybe losing her cushion of superiority forced her to look in the mirror and see someone other than herself. I didn't answer right away. I asked her to wait outside while I finished my rounds. As I checked on customers and restocked shelves, memories of my past played like a quiet reel in my mind. The fire, the hunger, the tears, the night spent sewing by a flickering lamp. I remembered the pain, but I also remembered the promise I made to myself, to never become like those who mocked me, to never let success harden me. So I walked back to her and said, "We're hiring interns. The pay is modest. You'll be learning from the bottom. Inventory, customer service, even steaming clothes. No special privileges. If you're serious, show up tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp." She blinked. "You're giving me a chance?" "I'm giving me a chance," I said, "to prove I can be better than what you were." She nodded quietly. The next day she came. On time, hair tied back, no designer bag, just a plain shirt and quiet eyes. And for the first time, she listened. Trina became a silent shadow in the boutique, folding scarves, organizing racks, greeting customers with the kind of softness I never imagined she had in her. She never tried to charm her way into special treatment, never mentioned her past status. She just worked. One rainy afternoon, I found her steaming a batch of dresses in the back room. Her sleeves were rolled up, her hair damp from the humidity. She didn't see me watching her. She looked tired, but not just physically. There was a weight in her shoulders, a lesson worn like an invisible shawl. Later that day, she approached me with hesitation. "Can I talk to you?" I nodded and gestured for her to sit. The boutique was quiet, the last few customers just leaving. "I want to apologize," she said, her voice steady. "Not just for the day I mocked your dress, but for all the people I made feel small, to make myself feel bigger." I didn't interrupt. "I used to think fashion was about labels and price tags. Now I realize it's about how it makes someone feel. And your designs, they carry stories, hope. I see it now." There was silence between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. "I used to look down on girls like you," she added, "because I was afraid of becoming one. Poor, unnoticed, unremarkable. But you made something out of nothing. You stitched dignity into rags. You didn't just survive, you flourished." I blinked, surprised by how sincere she sounded. This wasn't a performance. This was real. So I told her something I never thought I would. "I forgive you." She looked up sharply, as if she didn't expect to hear those words. "I forgive you," I repeated, "but not because I want to forget what happened. I forgive you because I've moved past it, and carrying hate with me. It's too heavy for someone who walks with dreams." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she wiped them before they could fall. That day, I didn't just release her from guilt. I released myself from pain. I had learned to cut more than just fabric. I'd learned to cut away resentment, to stitch something stronger in its place: grace. 1 year later, Sutra Soul wasn't just a boutique, it was a movement. We had expanded to 3 locations, launched our own online store with international shipping, and collaborated with rural women artisans who stitched their heritage into every thread. The dress I once wore, the cheap one Trina mocked, was now framed in our main branch, not as a reminder of shame, but as a monument of resilience. A small gold plaque underneath read, "This is where the story began, with hands, hope, and heart." Every customer that entered would pause at it, drawn by its simplicity. Some asked if it was for sale. I always smiled and said, "No, this one's priceless." Trina still worked with us, not as a stylist, not as a manager, but as head of training and empathy workshops, a department we built together to teach employees not just how to serve, but how to see people. She had transformed, not overnight, but layer by layer, thread by thread. Her arrogance had unraveled, and in its place, humility had been sewn in. One evening, after a long day of prepping for our winter collection, we stood outside the boutique, watching the streetlights glow softly over the cobbled path. She turned to me. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't mocked you that day?" I chuckled. "Maybe I wouldn't have had the fire to start this all." She smiled, eyes warm. "Then I'm glad I was your villain." I shook my head. "No, Trina, you weren't the villain. You were the mirror." She blinked. "You showed me everything I didn't want to become, and that helped me see everything I could become." As she nodded quietly, I looked up at the night sky, wide, dark, full of endless possibilities, and in that moment, I knew I wasn't just the girl who wore the cheap dress. I was the girl who turned stitches into steps, pain into power, mockery into a movement, because destiny, like fabric, can be cut, but it can also be rewoven. And I had woven mine beautifully.